Hello and welcome to the Go There Do That podcast. My name is Ethan, and today we have a very special guest. It is Carlos Lopez Jr. And so, a little bit about Carlos is that he
You could let him introduce himself.
Carlos
No, please go ahead.
I was going to introduce him, but Carlos, what do you do?
I work with Ethan in the city of Round Rock in the communications department. I graduated in film. I write things, can't record things with the camera. That's what I do.
Camera stuff, like I say. So, Carlos, at the time of this recording, recently just had a play he wrote debut at the Hyde Park Theater in Austin, which was really cool. I actually went to it. It's called A Family Dinner. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked it. I didn't know that the Hyde Park Theater in Austin, though, kind of can do whatever there.
Yeah.
I was expecting just plays like yours was, like three characters just acting out a scene, but there were some other interesting things there too. But how do you think it was, that experience for you?
I'm proud of it because I entered. It's called the Frontier Fest, and they have 4 weeks of different plays or whatever you want to do to bring it on stage, and their initial count was in November, so you had to basically submit something by November, and I submitted December 16th. So a month later, luckily they got me in, and then less than a month we had to find actors, find a director, and then get them to rehearse and get them to actually perform it on stage.
Yeah.
So less than a month I got something made. That's crazy.
So you wrote the script for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so cool.
And I wrote it on a weekend, like before Christmas. Like it was Christmas,
like
was
December 16th.
Yeah. Christmas was on Monday, correct?
Yes, that sounds right.
So I started writing it Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
In that time frame, that's when I emailed it to all the actors.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you submitted for the contest before you had a script.
Yeah.
So you were like confident that you were like,
I was that confident.
Yeah, well, and I mean sometimes that can give you like motivation to kind of, get going on something. That's cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they didn't require like a document yet. They just said, what's the title and what's the premise? So I was like, I'll just do something that happened to me recently, and then gave a very basic premise.
Yeah.
And then branch off from there. And what I initially had with the premise is not the exact same thing.
Right.
The premise was like these three sisters are coming together to celebrate a dinner, but their mom's died. Mom's dead. And they're all coming over some trauma, the three characters. But what Ethan saw, only one of them has something they're going to come over. Mm-hmm. I think the other character, she has like alcohol. And that's a remnant of like the past, drafts of the play.
Yeah.
Because you had to squish it into 25 minutes.
Yeah. And like I realized, like, wait a minute, this is way too much. It's getting very complicated. And theater's very much simple things. And what can you do in a room?
That's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really cool thing to experience in Austin, though. Like, it's great that Carlos is somebody who brings me into Austin and actually lets me explore the cool things that are around, that
are offered there. Yeah.
Because it takes a lot, and it was really cool to see, though, that something you made, like a story you were telling. But yeah, I did notice there was like where's part 2 type of thing at the end, because
well, it's good if you leave people wanting more. Yeah. Yeah.
But like Hyde Park Theater, it's traditional. Like they have plays and they have things like that. Like the last time I was there, they had a play called Small Steps, and it was about a fictionalized NASA astronaut, and he was gay, but he's going to be the first man to land on the moon. And like that was very cool to see, and just a one-man show with him dealing with these things. So they do have more traditional stuff, but this festival is more of like off the wall, things. I mean, you saw like the 3 one-man shows and 1 woman shows was like insane, like craziness.
That's the fun of Austin.
Yeah.
So you originally were more of a fan of like film and video type things, and you wrote a script for a short film, and then that's what got you into the script writing for theater, right? Because you had something at Sam Bass Theater in Round Rock as well. But so I pay attention to like the books you've been reading, and so you like went to film, which is one of the highest forms of like entertainment, like video, right? And because you can distribute it everywhere, and it's like movie magic stuff. But what's the most basic way of thinking of that? And it's all theater, right? And so that's what you started looking into, and it's interesting to see that you're now writing plays and everything. Yeah. But we like talking about movies too. So what is it that, could you explain that journey just a little bit? Like what does film mean to you, Carlos?
I mean, we'll first talk about theater, and like I think the reason why I went back is to find a strong foundation.
Yeah, that's what it. Yeah, that's what
so that I know where it comes from, because I think a lot of people in our industry and just collective, we don't go back to our roots at all. Like we try to ignore those roots. We don't really pay attention to those things. And for me, what's important is like if I want to continue doing this, I want to go back and back and back to know where it started, where it comes from. The original idea of theater was democracy, and how they all viewed it as one, that they would experience these things and get some catharsis out of it in Greece. And eventually, obviously, it morphed into different things, and that's what happens with time, and things change, and society and minds change all the time. But for me, it was important to go back to that. Even with photography, as I said, like I have an old school point and shoot camera. I have to put film stock in it, and then where you have cameras that are digital. So for me, it's important just to go back and realize and try to craft the fundamentals so that I can come into the things that I want to do and to propel it forward into.
It kind of gives you an appreciation of like where you're at, where we're at now with that too. Yeah, of how far it's come, and yeah, that's cool.
That was what's interesting about using that old 8mm camera I told you about. That like having to, it's much more of an intimate process to be a part, because a memory card is just a memory card, but handling the film reel itself, it's like, oh, every little slide of this is like a frame of a life, right?
Yeah.
And so you're like trying to take care of it, because you know what happens if you like accidentally show it to the sun, because when I tried that, most of it was overexposed and not good looking. And it's kind of crazy how as you create the degrees of separation, where now we have cell phones for video and stuff, you lose the appreciation for the foundation, like you were saying.
And respect for like that craft. Like, I mean, imagine being a videographer like 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
I've had
that's a lot of work.
several people tell me, I have, the days when I sat in the dark room for hours and hours. Like, how many people have told me that? And I'm like, dang, I like practiced on like mini DV tapes, and that's like the latest that I would, practice on. But then to imagine every single second. So what is using the film camera done for you? You just recently finished the roll, right? Yeah.
It's actually making me realize, okay, what's the most important thing in my environment? And what do I actually see? Because I can't view it back. So what can I look at right now and change? So like, my hand's sticking out like this, I see its screen right here. And I noticed that this is like a tavern feel, me just looking at it with my eyes.
Yeah.
And that when you go back and using those old cameras, it's like you just have this to look at. Instead of with the camera, you have this, but then you also have the screen too. So you have like two different viewpoints.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to be like more focused. Yeah.
And I told him this. I started to breathe actually taking a photo. Like for some reason, I was holding my breath when I was taking the photos. So then I stopped and like just took a moment to just breathe for a second, and then take the photo so that I'm fully realized in this moment. Because photography is very much like capturing a single moment, like right above you, right there.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of like anxiety that's kind of reflected in somebody's like like if
work.
you can tell, oh, they took a lot of time on this or something, like composition and everything, and there's like little bitty details, and it gets more and more like as you think about it, and you're like not holding your breath because you need to be like relaxed while you're doing it. It would it turn into a different photo if you were like more tensed up taking them, right? So that's interesting.
Yeah, the photo I sent that showed you was the watch. That was the one where I took like a second because it was gonna be there motionless, so I had time. So it was me just like taking a second, just like breathe.
Yeah,
and that's why I think I view photography the most is that like we're just capturing moments. That's it. But then you have to see it. You have to see the moment. You have to see what's going on every time,
and not forget to like be in the moment.
Yeah,
like you're still a part of it. Sometimes like it can. I don't know. I don't do photography that much, but like it can feel like you're almost outside of the moment, like peeking into it, but like remembering that you're a part of the moment. You're just like a medium for capture. Like, yeah.
That's cool.
But it is cool about photographers that, well, I know you said you don't do that, but technically you take photos, right?
Yeah.
Like with your, so you, in a way you are the photographer. And I think that's the very cool thing about cameras as a photographer, that technically anybody can do it because we live in a society where like our cameras are in our phones, so that anybody can take a really good photo. And I value that.
Yep.
It's a one tool that anybody can really use. Like, my girlfriend doesn't know how to change a flat tire. Some people don't know, but then anyone could take a photo.
Right.
And I find that inspiring that anyone can actually do what we do.
Right.
So what's the difference between a good photo and a great photo? Like anyone can take a photo, but what makes something like...
I think it has to be you as the individual. And what do you see? What makes you special? Because, I mean, our technology makes us always take good photos, right? Like, there's no, like, unless you're just blind or just drunk or something, where it's blurry or something's out of focus. So, technically, all our photos are standard, like, good. But then what excels is you as the individual, not the camera.
That's what separates photos now. With how much content is out there, it's like, when everybody's doing great photos, there's no such thing as like that anymore. Everything's a great photo. Now there's like a new standard for, and it's like how much you are in it, I guess. Interesting. I
was going to say going back to like the film and foundations, foundations are key. I was telling Heather this downstairs about cooking, that you only need 4 things: salt, heat, iron, and oil, and that's like the main core ingredients for cooking. Yeah. And as soon as you understand the fundamentals, then you can excel from there.
Well,
And a lot of film people that I've talked to, they don't always understand the fundamentals of just storytelling on a level of where it comes from.
Yeah.
And now I go to film now, I'm like, oh, these things make sense. Like, these ideas have been here for so long that some people don't want to go back and actually understand them in that way anymore.
Why is that? Why?
Because I think we're like too amazed by it, or we're just...
What's a lot of work?
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot. It's a lot of work to do anything.
And not everybody with a cell phone wants to understand the fundamental. They're just like, I don't care. It's a good photo. Like, yeah. Like, and then to look into it deeper is like, I mean, that's what the whole passion behind it is.
Right. It's like interest. Because even like I've taken photos, like wedding photos and stuff with you, and, like family photos. And I can do it and I do a good job. But like sometimes when you go further and you're like trying to talk to me about like aperture and like all that, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just need to know what buttons to press, and I can like adjust the settings a little bit. But like, I'm not as interested in like the workings of a camera as like you are, and like what all goes into that. And that's why like you're a better photographer than me, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The difference of we have like 2 different branches of foundations. That's what I was thinking about. Like Carlos film right? And then lands in theater, and that's you've gotten to the base. That's a pretty baseline, right?
Yeah.
Like it used to be a public service. You said back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so then you work your way up. But like I don't know, film, probably the most basic thing of video, like motion picture capture. It's basically just 24 photos a second. So I kind of went there. Interesting. So there's a certain movie that we both watched that we'll talk about. It's called Lawrence of Arabia. Would you want to delve into that?
Yes.
Okay, because that movie is crazy, and I've never seen a movie just use the environment as like a character, like the landscape, like it did. But it makes sense because it's a hot desert, so it's like scary. But they also had to film in the desert. So what do you know about that movie? What's cool about it to you?
But yeah, like your photos right there, like that transports you to that spot on the planet. And very much that film transports you to that desert. And to know that we don't know a lot of his story could be farce from the things he had said, but they filmed these things. There was real people doing these things, and that's very vital. And that opened my eyes when I saw it 2 years ago.
That film was based on a real dude, World War One.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. And so he wrote his own story, though, right?
Yeah. So the movie's based off his biography.
On his story.
Interesting.
So
I didn't
it's
know that when I
T.E.
watched
Lawrence is his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he wrote it, and he's like, yeah, all this happened. And it's like, well, that's incredible. And it's like, yeah. But
we all get to write our own stories.
And so that's what's interesting about the movie, too, is like, wow, what an epic person. And it's like, yeah, it's off of his own words. And it's like, well, then if you told your own story, would it, if you felt great about what you did, wouldn't you just kind of say, yeah, it was like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you say I was worshipped as like a god person, but, you know.
Right, yeah.
Like in the movie. But yeah. The sun's anvil was like one of the coolest terms I've heard in a while. Where
what does that mean?
It was in the desert. There was like this hot stretch they had to cross in the movie. And so there was this last patch, and they had to go, and it was just insanely hot. And they called it the sun's anvil. And that's when he said, he like went back. This actually happened. He went back and saved a dude that fell off of his camel. And
I
brought
remember
him back.
that part in the movie, yeah.
But that part was the sun's anvil.
Yeah.
And so then when the sun's rising, it's literally just a sunrise, and you've seen them several times. But then in the context of the movie, it's rising up, and you're like, oh no. And that's really cool. That's what I like about that movie. Yeah. Because, you see sunsets at the beginning of documentaries.
Right.
And it's like, oh, cool, a sunset. But like that, the meaning behind that happening, it's so different.
What is the meaning behind that happening?
It's like, oh crap, the sun's gonna kill this guy.
Right, because you're in the desert, yeah.
Yeah, because you're in the desert, in the wilderness.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's cool.
So, since you watch Lawrence of Arabia, do you get those feelings when you're out in the wilderness in that way? Because just seeing, like, 4 hours just at one location for
I don't think we've ever
time.
been in like a really like scary, alarming situation where it's like I could die from. Well,
Okay, so
well, what?
so there was a time when we were. I don't know if I've told this story on like the podcast. I guess I'll go into detail. So a challenging environment that you can overcome. There's something to be said about that, which is the desert, living in it, right? Like I couldn't imagine that. But an experience that I have is we were going up to the top of Guadalupe Mountain, the tallest point in Texas, and so you kind of got to get used to the gear you wear. Like there's no such thing as bad weather anymore. It's just bad preparation for the weather is what I've heard once. So it's like we have gear for everything. Know what you're going to do. I was going to the top. I got sweaty because I wore too much warmth. And so then I shed the layer.
because it was snowing as we were going up.
It started snowing as we were going up, which we got some cool photos, but it was also a challenge to be cold that whole time. So as we went up, I think my internal core temperature started dropping because I was sweaty at my lowest layer, and I just kind of had it out against the wind. then we get to the top, and we were like both exhausted.
We literally like passed like we fell asleep.
Yeah, like
on the top. It was just us because we left really early.
Yeah.
And when we got to the top, we fell asleep. Like we like took a photo.
I set up a time lapse.
I crawled on top of the like rock part at the top. Like I crawled because I was like so tired. And then we got back down and we like set up the chairs and then we like fell asleep in the chairs.
It was a challenge. And so we do that, fall asleep, rest up, and then we probably shouldn't have went up during a snowstorm. I think that's
probably not the best.
Yeah. So, but as I go down, thankfully I had this down jacket, which started to keep me warm because we were going back down, and I was like, oh no, I'm like near exhaustion or something.
Yeah.
And I think
cold.
And so then this is probably the closest I've gotten to like being a news story, like hiker falls off cliff, because I was like looking over the edge and I felt like, I was like, oh no. And like I just drank a little bit of water and then immediately like couldn't keep it down. And so it was like kind of scary, I guess. And Heather was like, I had
gone off. Yeah, you were like, I'm good. So I kept going.
I'm going to take a photo here.
And then I was like, he's like not anywhere near behind me. Like he was I like wound up turning around and like finding him because he was like way far back. But I think you like had hypothermia.
Yeah.
But it was like also a weird environment. Like you weren't expecting to. Like we've been to Alaska and you're like very aware and like making sure you're not getting too cold but like
it was unexpected.
We weren't that wasn't a thought that could happen.
So yeah, but got some cool photos and I'm okay. But yeah, like Northern Lights was no problem because I prepared for that. But yeah, it was weird. So anyways, that's a fun travel story that close.
Yeah, I guess that's probably which I mean I was okay, but also like if something would have happened to you on the mountain, I sprint down and like I can't carry you and
yeah, so I have to not do that ever again.
And you in Alaska, you guys saw orcas?
We did the first time we were there, like from the ship.
Wasn't it a humpback
Oh no, you're right. Yeah, it's humpbacks.
Humpback whales.
Yeah, I've never seen orcas.
Not the killer whale.
The scary ones.
Killer whale.
Not Shamu. Yeah. So the desert, it's a metaphor a little bit, right? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, you got to go through the desert. We've kind of spoken a little bit about that. Is it like a mental thing, like a mental challenge also on top of that?
Are you willing to survive in the desert? And can you? Or are you just going to lose yourself? And he does lose himself.
Because in the desert, you can be anybody, right? Or is it, what does that mean? You're losing yourself.
Well, I think the character of Lawrence, I think he didn't know who he was at the time before he went inside the desert. And then when he leaves, like, it's so different. And that's also, like, your environment. Like, it doesn't have to be like a desert. It could be school, it could be work, it could be something else entirely, that you're a different person when you go into this place.
Whoa.
So that affects the character and who he was at the time.
That's cool. The environment, you can't help but be changed by your environment, but oh man, so you're always going to be like, he couldn't help but be changed by all that happening. Huh.
Like I talked to this police officer a few years ago, and he was telling me like he doesn't even have an office. His office is his car, and I'm like, how can you just work in a car unless you're like an Uber driver? But I can't imagine just what you think all the time if you're just in a car, in a squad car, like day and night.
Yeah.
So your environment does affect what you are and what you're thinking about.
Is there any ways you apply that to, like, did you design the environment for your play?
Oh no, I mean
you didn't. Oh, okay.
Theater's very much like, what can you do in a room, and like film's the opposite. It's like, okay, how can we progress the story?
Whoa.
So, in my head, I'm like, I just got a table and some chairs. What can I do with that? And that's very much the fun of theater's. Like, okay, I have a small space. What can I do?
Yeah.
And like those three people that did their different art acts, like it was all unique to them, and they could have done it anywhere. Like they could have gone to like a open mic night they could have done it, or they could have put it in a movie theater or something. But mine was very much like theater acting, like traditional style type of way.
Yeah.
And like mine was just my way, and like they had their 3 different ways too. But especially I've been to that theater twice before, so I kind of knew what it looked like.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is kind of what I can do with it. This is what I think it could happen, what I can get away with at this point. But
yeah, so there were 4 different performances, and they were all totally different. Used the environment differently. There was one person that just projected a video onto a wall, which was interesting because hers was about.
You're getting ideas.
Hers was
yeah.
Well, yeah.
He's like, wait, I can project my videos.
Yeah, because she just narrated the whole thing, and it was kind of neat. But she went to Antarctica and talked about how that changed her, which was interesting. But that was cold.
The ultimate, like, desert tundra.
Technically, it's a desert, I think.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But yeah, she talked about how that like experience and living in the cold and dunking underwater and then coming back.
That would change you.
Yeah. Because she lived in an office environment for 20 years, right? You remember this? I think.
Yeah.
20 years, and then she just applied to an office job in Antarctica, and she was like happier. Yeah. Because it was like crazy different, like. Yeah.
They have office jobs in Antarctica?
She was like, yeah,
apparently.
Work from home?
Yeah, she just like printed out papers or something, but then she got to live there. And
yeah, I noticed that they were all projecting themselves in a way.
Themselves.
Yeah, like the
but
3
aren't we
acts.
all? In any like
That's
story we tell, you know?
True. And
But you were just like sneakier about it.
Yeah, and
yes.
I feel like if you're going to be an artist, you have to define what art is and what you are as an artist. And for me, what I like about art is that it is a part of you, but then you have to look at it on the wall and you kind of have to detach because you're not the thing that you produce. Like, that's entirely a different thing. It has to live on its own, has to breathe on its own, has to exist without you. And for me, seeing those art pieces was like not what I view art. Like, obviously they viewed it in their way and like they did a wonderful job, and I can't talk crap because I don't want to be that person to like do that. That's their art. Like, that's respectful to them. But I just view it differently in that there has to be a line at the end of the day, like in Sopranos, when Christopher's like he makes the movie about Tony and his relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And then Carmel's like, oh, that's you. And he's like, doesn't see it. And I don't want to be the person to be so in their heads about themselves that they don't see that I projected something personally when it is a part of that. But I want to be open. I want to be not locked into that.
Yeah.
Is that what we do?
What?
Oh. So the first person projected their experience onto the wall. Second person talked about a traumatic experience and they wrote a book about it. And the third person was Carlos with totally separate everybody. He was the only one not like
presenting his story.
Yeah, he wasn't up there. Like, he didn't perform. And then the fourth guy was just a 5-act, like, reminded me of Jim Carrey, just different characters and stuff.
Like a one-man show.
Yes. Yeah, he literally said that at one point. He's like, this is a one-man show. Yeah.
A white guy one-man show.
Yeah. He was like, does the world really need another white guy one-man show? You're probably asking yourself that. And it's like, you addressed it, so now it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was interesting because, Carlos was the only one. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Like, so was that what we do with videos?
I mean, in a way, like, you take photos, like, you presenting what you saw. Like, obviously, it's not like your name's not on it, and you have like go there, do that. Like, that's different. But
it's still like, a part of it.
Yeah, it is. It's still very much a part of it. Yeah, you can't know. Yeah, but it is what you see, and that's very good.
Yeah.
And you do have a disattachment and attachment to it, that this is what we created together. This is our experience. But then again, it's not you as well. Like, we're not seeing you in the frame. We just see what you see. Yeah. And that's I think that's different. And like, obviously, if it was you in the frame, like, that would be totally like holding near and dear to this. But then at some point, like, if if you love something, right, you can't just do it like this. You kind of have to like let it go for a second and be safe distance wise.
Interesting. Yeah. That's what I was wondering, because when this first thing happened, I was like, you have to like create something together. I always called it building a boat, but like you attach it to something separate from ourselves, but so the amount of work that we each put into it is like beneficial to either one of us, right? Like trying to make it 50-50, because a lot of artists do put their name on the bottom right of a photo, and it's like, yeah, I took it, but when you look who's the artist, it's like telling you to maybe experience something yourself. I don't know, get to think. It really makes people, I hope some of the time, like think to like, oh no, I need to experience things or appreciate what's on there, you know. It's a lot of different reactions. I don't know, it's weird not putting your name though as the artist that took the photo,
right?
because that's what a lot of artists want, you know. But I'm like, no, Heather helps out too, so it's not just, you know, the that's what I talked to my uncle about. Was like, why did I do that? And it's like, well, it's probably because, you know.
Do you think it's also an ego thing?
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yeah.
Trying to separate the ego while also doubling down and being like, well, look, I did it. And it's like, well, okay. Yeah, interesting. Art is interesting. Yeah. So what's your current, like, not fixation, but you're like studying something right now. You're like a certain topic. What is that? You're reading books about a lot of it. You want to talk about it now?
Well, it's not a topic, but event, like I told you about the Austin bombs, like that's something I'm like researching about.
Yeah.
And trying to tell a story out of that.
So it's like journalism type.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's looking into the journalism side of storytelling. Is that what that is? Like you're researching in that way. That's cool. And so you want to be able to, with your city government like knowledge, kind of approach it from that angle, like
the politics of
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes back to like the roots of it. That like
right.
theater was very much talking about government, politics, and democracy. And navigating the Austin bombings, like you learn a lot about how Austin was operating, and then like them contacting Round Rock and them contacting Pflugerville. At some point, the guy was like researching Cedar Park houses and properties, so then they had to contact Cedar Park.
So they're having to work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very much fundamentals of how, you know, America works, right?
Yeah.
Put in places how these things work. And I think a lot of people forget that, and we don't value that as importance. Like we view other things of importance, like stars and money and all this. But it's, I think, as we saw from 2 years ago, that the Capitol riot happened.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. 2 years ago. Well, or
no,
3.
21.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, 21.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
And we saw how insane that things can get when a crowd of people want to do that.
So the reason you're choosing such a heavy topic is because you're like, you know, obviously from the area, and it's like a big event that happened, and you've never seen it approached in this way. Yeah, the whole story. That is. So you're just seeing where it's going.
Yeah, like seeing if I can find a story out of it. And the story I have is that the Austin police chief at the time, I think
Chief Manley.
Yeah, he has the most to say. Like he's almost the front man. Like every press conference he's there speaking first.
Interesting.
And that's really the only consistent quote unquote character
that you could develop a story out of. Yeah.
So when you're telling us,
because you don't want to do the story about the guy who did it, because you don't want to like glorify him, but how can I tell this story through another lens? Yeah.
Whoa. Because different perspectives. That's what you're focusing on, is the perspective of different
characters.
Yeah. You have to say characters, right? If it's a story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that goes back, like I was telling you, like the Lawrence of Arabia thing of it all, and that like a lot of filmmakers and directors, they're kind of doing that. They're going back and telling these real stories. Like we had Ferrari, we had Oppenheimer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Killers of the Flower Moon. Like this is like a trend that I'm noticing, and that's why I'm kind of leaning into that trend to see if they're on the right track. And I get to be in the same line of thinking as these elite people that are way up here, and I'm just kind of down below here.
Well, I'm down here with you.
I know. Great.
If you throw my hat in the ring, like we also just finished Big Ben Part 1, which reflected on our past experience, the first visit 3 years ago versus now. And like for me, it's kind of cool to see us.
It's like storytelling,
like
not just like a vlog.
How we've changed over the course of time. Because at one point, it's like I asked you your past self in the video. It's like, do you feel like your eyes have been opened? And you're like, what do you mean?
What do you even mean by that?
And then in the current now time,
like I'm just camping. Yeah. What are you trying to say?
You can literally see as your tears are welling up a sunset in your eyeballs. Like it's cool. Or the sunset in the beginning. It's like in your eyes. I don't know. I'd talk about that video all day. It's really cool.
It was a great shot. I love it.
Paston. Yeah. All natural. Heather doesn't really act. That's the thing. You ask her to go back and like do the around the turn again, and she'll keep walking. So it's like, oh, I missed that cool shot of something. Yeah,
I don't want to be like,
well, because they command people.
Yeah, because there's people on the trail, and you don't want to be like a nuisance. So it's like I have to hurry ahead and turn around and hope that.
Well, I'm also like, I don't want to do this if I become like some actress. Right. Like, where you're just like directing me what to do. Like, well, then I'm not interested in doing this anymore.
I see Heather the same as like photographing like a deer. Like you have to be quiet. You have to be.
That's so true.
Well, you can't like disturb. Like, hey, if I say like it's just as much a part of nature as everything else. You can't be like, do this thing, son. The sun is right. Like you can't tell it what to do. You have to be there when it happens. So yeah.
So then why would you tell her to walk? Like,
right, so then
he tried that at the beginning. He doesn't do it
because
anymore.
it would look cool, like walking around. Yeah, so I had to like.
You got to work with nature. You got to work with me.
Yeah, so that's like how I apply it too. I think in the videos, because then I'm like, oh, there is a story here, but you have to find it. Find the story, Carlos.
Yeah, it's very much finding the needle in the haystack and digging up the gold.
Yeah,
all the time.
That was something I heard at NAB conference in Las Vegas, but they were talking to documentary filmmakers. They talked about creating a story in their documentary. They were going to make it about a Huey helicopter, like Vietnam. And so they were interviewing veterans about the helicopter because they were just like, this helicopter was used in Vietnam a lot. But they found that along the way of making the story, the veterans were way more interesting because it was like, oh, they like have stories. They served, on this helicopter. And so they were like not very approachable at first. But once they got together and got in the helicopter, they just literally filmed them two interacting and catching up. And that was like the documentary.
And that became a story. That probably happens often. Like someone goes into a documentary thinking that their idea... like having this idea, and then you have to kind of change course with like what you're actually getting, and following the story, almost like journalism. Yeah. Like you follow the story,
Yeah. So that's kind of how I see ours is like a mixture of documentary, I don't know, film stuff. Cause I'm trying to think of how to define, cause I don't like vlog and I don't like influencer. I don't like content creator. And,
I don't think I'm ready to define it yet.
Yeah, right. So
still documenting and then figure it out from there. Yeah.
Well, it's that video I sent you where it was going against direct cinema and cinema verte, where it's very much that where you are in front of the camera too, so that you are involved in what's being done.
Cinema verte, film truth.
Oh.
So there's like a example of a film that was shown, and the directors got into the film like with the actors and were like, how do we go forward with this? And they were filming that. They're like, what do we do? And they were like filming the process of them making it, and that was also a part of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is like crazy. And then they talked about there was another way of, they were just going around in the streets and just, it was like a movie that was made, but it was all like natural things happening somehow. And they like, I guess maybe you could say like you put it together later. Yeah. You find the story as you just shoot a bunch of stuff. Yeah. and then that's the truth, right? But it's just your interpretation of it by editing.
Right.
You know. So, I think like anything you make is like, I think a movie is so powerful because it feels like a dream that somebody had that like is made into reality, right? That's what it would feel like probably to like, yeah. And a documentary is like a real life experience that's made into something, but it still is in the same medium of a movie. So then it's like, well, this could be a dream also. You know, like that's wedding videos and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you want to remember it like it's a dream. Like, yeah. Because, you know, there was like a problem with the vendor or caterer or something, but you don't ever document that part.
Yeah,
Right?
but right, not in like a wedding video, but like, yeah, I don't know.
We're just documenting truth. That's
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. So, can a video film be like a lie? Is that possible? Can
No, I don't
How?
think so.
Why?
Because you can't doctrine. I don't think we can doctrine that much and like change a lot. You would have to change a lot to make the lie. But then like someone would find out whatever you're doing.
Oh. So even if we had some AI type video thing, there would be a collective agreement that that's not real. Like you see those travel videos and stuff that are like totally fake and people are like, wow, so beautiful. Where is this?
Yeah, and I'm like, what? Like, pay attention. That horse has 2 legs.
So people can sniff out the lie, and the people who are like, no. Like there's going to always be people that are like,
Yeah.
this is not truth.
Then if you tell the truth, then no one's going to deny it. Well, there's people that are going to deny it, but a majority is going to be truth. So which one do you want? Do you want truth more or lies, or do you want lies more or truth less?
Whoa, I don't know.
What?
I don't know. Explain that.
No, I just
Oh.
like are you saying that like video can't be a lie or?
Yeah, that's what you're positing, that video can't be a lie.
That's what I asked.
Yeah.
Like, can you lie in a video? And it's like we talk about film truth
Well,
and
you can
stuff.
certainly manipulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
but
can manipulate
maybe
the
not
truth,
lie, but
yeah.
you're manipulating the truth.
Oh, because
yeah.
you're the liar. You know, the one making it. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
It's confusing. Cool.
Well, think about it. It's like you have a square. Obviously, you can crop something out and you can position so something's out of the way. So technically, you are hiding something, but then you're still showing the truth nonetheless. It's just how you're viewing it.
Everything
How it's
in
interpreted.
Everything
Yeah.
in that square. Yeah.
It's that image of like the cartoon of like the knife, like striking onto somebody, and the news camera's like capturing it. But then you see a bigger picture, and it's like not
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's that
Right.
same concept.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Because I was trying to think of like the opposite.
Like
of,
you're still seeing something real,
Yeah.
but it's manipulated to
Okay.
make you think a certain thing. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like Fox News. So
Right.
I was just trying to think of the inverse of film truth, what that would be defined as, you know, as an example or something. Is there one? But
I don't know.
No.
yeah. Okay. Well, we can move on. So, yeah. So, what else, Carlos? What else we got? We have. I'm gonna pause for a second.
Okay. And gather.
Cut.
O'Malley's like snoring.
he's so storied.
That's good. I just had to pet him for a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. I gave him like a CBD gum, not a CBD gummy, like a dog CBD treat.
Oh, that's a thing.
Yeah. Wow. And like I think it makes him extra sleepy.
That's good.
I'm not gonna give him to him very often because I feel bad, like drugging a kid or something.
Oh,
How long have we been doing this for? I'm gonna talk about social media with Carlos.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
With Carlos, can I go
no.
then?
Well,
He said,
how about
with Carlos.
well, that's where I wanted to
With
get.
or without
That's
you?
where I wanted to get into, but then I was trying to figure out.
A segue.
Yeah, and then I was just
Speaking of truth and lies.
yeah, speaking of,
What about social media, man?
I'm gonna say that. So speaking of truth and lies, so what is your opinion on social media then? If truth anything that's filmed, right, is truth. So, like, why do we call people on social media all the time fake? Does that make sense?
Do we?
Well, there's fake person. Oh, like, I don't know. They try to. I guess that's true then, right? That's also. You have a persona on social media that's not the genuine you. Like, that's what we talk about a lot with people as a broad term, I think. Right? Okay, so what does that mean when you talk about people?
I know. It's like thinking about going to the gym and just taking one photo of you doing something heavy.
That's what. Yeah. Okay.
Simple.
Just
but that
manipulation.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing that you're manipulating things. You're just doing it for the sake of the photo. You're just trying to do it for just the sake of it. And that's the same sort of thing we're saying. Like, it's projection, and you're just doing it just because you want to have the endorsement. You want to have the likes. You want to have all that fan base.
So it's the intention is not actually for you. Really. And so the truth is you did go to the gym, take one photo and leave. Like, that's proof. But yeah, it gets into more of your intention behind why you're making the thing. Right?
It's still media. Like,
yeah,
it's the same sort of still thing that we continue to talk about, where it's like, what can you put yourself out there? Do you want to put yourself out there? What do you want to be seen? And how do you want to be portrayed out in the world?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So, what motivated you to like do your? I guess what was the exact motivation behind like the theater side of things? What has that done for you? Like the writing, the process. Obviously, it's beneficial, right? So, like, what does that do for you? Because I know like our videos is like nice because I'm watching them back and it's like a happy, memory to look back on. Is that something similar to you, or are you like expressing something?
It's to clear noise, I think, to make things more clear and to make it more. Because I think we very much try to not. We don't like to simplify things.
Don't like to?
Yeah, I like to simplify things a lot, and that going back to the roots, I know where it started. I know why of it all, and what can I do about it now. Because I mean. Film's complicated, life's complicated, and when you kind of go back to the roots, to the very simple fundamental things, then you see everything clearly now, which I see clearly.
Yeah, maybe it's not so complicated.
So that's what you said about cooking too.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the 4 main components. Yeah, okay.
Watch it, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to.
So it's complicated to make things simple. Like, it's hard work.
Yeah, it's very hard work to
get to the point of being simple.
Yeah.
But then does that counteract it and make it complicated?
Yeah, it gets complicated, and then it gets complicated.
And then really nothing's simple. I'm just kidding.
It's a feedback loop. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Like like the picture behind you. How many pixels are in that picture?
Like
several.
32 million, I think. Well, yeah.
Okay, think about it. How would you paint it? You would only need a handful of colors, right?
Oh, shoot.
That's the difference right there. Is that painting was very simple, like hand strokes, only a few colors, shadows, perspective. That's really all it was. But then when you take a photo, it's very much the technology of it all and how it's seen. And that you have 1,000+ pixels for it to be seen.
We got it easy. It's much easier to express yourself, but I think like still finding that like definite way you want to express it is still just as hard as it was when you were painting. Does that make sense? Yeah, like the way you approach things always has to be like from an honest place, and that's what's hard about anything. So then whenever you're like, well, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to do it, there's even more options and ways to do it. It seems easier now. Yeah,
but it's like overwhelmingly easier. Yeah. So then it's like, what do I even choose?
So then, yeah.
Yeah.
All those options.
Yeah, like that movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it's like you have so many possibilities, in like the day and age that we live in. But then it's like overwhelming because you have all these possibilities. And then so you can't even, it's hard to pick something.
That's another good takeaway from that movie, yeah. Like, everything's just hitting you. I mean, the name of the movie, right? Like, that's what life is, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the whole premise is like she could have been all these things,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh shoot, yeah.
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you have more opportunities today than, we ever have, really. So there's like so many opportunities to like do something, be something, what you want to do, whatever. But then it's kind of daunting.
Yeah. It feels like you missed the boat whenever you like see that thing pass, by you once, and you're like, oh, that's the thing I was wanting, and then it's like gone. But it's like, yeah. But you had to, yeah. It's interesting. What do you think?
About the movie?
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Yeah, and then like the part where they're just like rocks.
Oh.
And it's like quiet,
Mm-hmm.
and they like actually they actually slow down and like that's like the first time they have a real conversation in the whole movie.
And they laughed.
Yeah.
Subtitle.
But it's like, but that was like the simplest, medium. Just
reduced,
sitting there, you're just a rock.
Yeah.
Like you have nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Nothing to be.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. That's fun. Okay. So if you were a rock, life would be pretty simple.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, you wouldn't have anything.
Well, it would be, yeah.
Yeah, you would have nowhere to go, nothing to do.
I think my brain like had already translated that into you asking me if life would be like happier, or you know what I mean? And I was like, I don't know, but it would be simpler. Yeah.
Would you still love me if I was a rock?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So that's the truth of it all. Whatever you are, that's okay.
Yeah.
And so then you do whatever you want, and that's also okay. So like, why is it important for you to know who you are? Because then you're like, oh, I'm doing what I want, right? Like, yeah, because you're constantly like feeling like you're doing things for other people.
Sometimes it like
right?
feels scary to like pick who you are, though. Like I don't want to be in a box.
You get to pick.
Well, I guess,
Define?
but that's the same thing as like what you show. Yeah.
You said something about a stamp once, like.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Well, like when you're born, you like have definite qualities about yourself, with traits, you
and
know.
Then most of it's environmental, but I think everyone has like a stamp of like who you are, just like right out the gate, and then it changes and like grows and stuff. But like, yeah.
And it's something I read once, and there was like the Greek or Roman, big difference, but their root word for character was stamp.
Yeah, and you read that like after
I read that, and I was like,
and I definitely never like
character is so that's who you are when you're born. And so have you always been into like movies and writing and stuff?
Yeah.
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 Because I've always watched movies, and like Lord of the Rings, grew up watching it, and then as soon as I learned how the behind the scenes, that's when I was like, oh,
I want to do that. I want to be involved in that.
That's cool. Yeah. I was like, oh, there's actually people behind this square. And so then that's like the first step I took, was like, there's something beyond the screen. Yeah. But I didn't get a camera until way later in life. But
you were just seeking the truth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. So then I was like, well, yeah, well, how does this work? So it's about how deeply you want to go into something too.
Yeah.
You're back in theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's baseline foundation.
Yeah.
And then you got to go back up.
We don't have to,
Well,
but you
yeah,
can.
you don't
You can.
You don't have to. Yeah. It's just hard to make it on what is Broadway like the ultimate theater?
Yeah, it's in New York, but
for sure.
It's very.
So I've been to a show once, Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, but
yeah, but you're like
cool.
You're closer to that having written a like play than like saying, oh, that'd be cool if I could do that, but I never will.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Even if it feels far away, the more like things you do to get there, the closer it gets. That's just how it works.
So what's worth like paying attention to an idea, because there's millions that come into your head. So like, why write the play?
I think the gut feeling.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure everyone has like a gut feeling like, I probably should do that, and that was very much the feeling of like, let's try it, let's do it, just see what happens. And like I didn't expect much out of it, and we had a good time at the performance.
Comes from like trusting yourself, like believing in your gut. Yeah.
It's not my best work, but it's okay.
But
I'm
you did
fine
it.
with okay. Yeah, exactly. I did it.
That took me a while to get over. It was like,
that it has to be perfect.
Everything I'm making
Yes.
not being like the magnum opus of
Yes.
what you're doing. And I was like, why isn't this the best? Why don't I feel satisfied?
I struggle with that too, where it's like that idea where it's like it's better to do something half-assed than like not at all. But I'm like, but I want to be like perfect at it. That's hard. To
Better
get
to do
past.
something poorly than not at all. Yeah, because there's people who don't do anything like that thing at all. Nobody's submitted to the right. Like how many? Your odds are increased by magnitudes if you just submit something,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you miss 100% of the shots
That you don't
take. Yeah, so that's interesting. But yeah, the motivation behind it is the gut feeling. But there's some people that suppress the gut feeling. Like I've done that, where I'm like, no, and then you're like, oh, I feel terrible for not doing that thing.
Yeah, it feels sometimes your body like reacts to that.
Yeah.
And it like throws you into not feeling very good because you like didn't listen to yourself. Like you know that it's wrong, like against yourself. Yeah.
Weird.
It's the mind and body fighting each other.
Oh. Oh yeah. That's interesting. So, good job for doing it. That was cool.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
What a way to start the year too.
That's what we were saying. Yeah. Like we were thinking about that. It's really nice. But it's the year to do it. What other year would be better? So what's next for you? Are you going to focus on more theatrical? Are you going to go into journalism or?
No, I think it's still the bomb what I had mentioned. I think trying to navigate and trying to build a story out of that. And I have some ideas and structure wise and seeing even if I could do it in the first place. Like the two plays I've done, like it was very much like competition, a festival, something very much anyone can do. Now this is very much who do I have to talk to? There's gonna have to be money involved. There's gonna have things involved that's gonna be way bigger than me.
Scale.
So that's trying to navigate that, I think.
Wow, cool. Yeah, and you also just work in the industry in the Austin area.
I think that's cool that you're like even like going forward with that, like trying to learn those things, because I think a lot of people like some people might get a degree in like film or something, and then you like have your degree and then you like graduate and you're like, all right, like where's my opportunities? But you like when you're done with school you're like, oh, I'm done learning about like that that can be like the attitude sometimes. So it's cool that you're like learning on your own, like you're not in school anymore, but you're like, well, I've got to keep growing and learning to go somewhere with this.
That goes back to me my high school and college days when I was a slacker.
So
now I'm trying to earn that back.
Redeem
myself for being such a slacker.
Then
well, it's weird because I used to think I could only learn if I was just paying for it.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
right.
Like, wait, I'm cheating myself by saying that. It's weird though, because it's hard to get out of that mindset. All the way up until college, you've been in school having to do it, and then it's like, all right, nobody's gonna make you do it anymore. And then you stop. Yeah. Yeah. Is it a gut feeling to learn more things? I don't know. Like you want to.
Yeah, I think I definitely like feel better when I am. So like when I'm not kind of feeding myself in that way, like I start to like not feel good because you're working against yourself. Because I think you do want to, like you have that instinct to want to learn more. And
What's behind the TV screen? Well, Carlos, this was great.
Yes.
This was awesome. Thanks for being on. We'll have to have you back on again to update us on any projects you're having, because it's very interesting talking to you about things. But I think before Smoosh wakes up, we better cut this one off. So
thank you for inviting me, you both.
Oh, yeah, it was great. Thanks for being here. So thank you guys for listening. If you're still around, have a great day and go there, do that. So long. That was the first time I ended it with "go there, do that."
You gotta keep that.
I know.
I mean, it makes sense for like an outro.
You gotta go there and do that.